Hey, I'm Ziggy Ramo, and I'm here chatting with Milky. Yeah, I did like the majority of writing on Sugar-Coated Lies, across 2018, 2019, and was planning on putting it out in 2020. At the time, I had already kind of shelved another piece of work called Black Thoughts, and in 2020, just kind of with everything that was going on in the world, there was just a real obvious pull within me to want Black Thoughts to be out in the world. So I kind of went back to the original plan and put out that as my debut album as it was written. And kind of since 2020, I've been touring that and playing shows and just, kind of existing in the world with Black Thoughts. And last year in 2022, I got brought onto a project called Black Snow, which is a TV show, which I kind of made my acting debut in and also co-composed a score. As I was doing that, this kind of sophomore album, Sugar-Coated Lies, just felt very paralleled to Black Snow. And lo and behold, the title track ended up being used in Black Snow. And that just kind of was, again, a really big pool of like things lining up of, this album should be out in the world now. Black Thoughts, my debut album, was very in your face and explicit, and it was about the external and the context and history of what's going on in this country, and through the lens of myself. When I kind of went to write my next album, I didn't want to make the same thing again. And so Black Thoughts obviously is kind of looking at my lineage as Wik, as an Indigenous man. I'm also Solomon Islander, Australian South Sea Islander. And there's this completely hidden history of slavery and exploitation in this country that we don't talk about and don't acknowledge. And so for me, as an artist, wanting to grow and explore different practices and a desire not to write the same thing again, I kind of just found myself wanting to, instead of doing the external, do the internal. So Sugar-Coated Lies all kind of came about the reflection within, set the kind of scene and the context with Black Thoughts. This is the world in which I'm existing in, and Sugar-Coated Lies was about how that kind of makes me feel. Black Thoughts explains the intergenerational trauma and the history, and Sugar-Coated Lies reflects on what it's like to carry it. And, Sugar-Coated Lies as a title obviously is paying ode to the fact that, 62,000 South Sea Islanders were brought over to work on the sugarcane fields. And it's this history that's hidden. So the whole idea of this album was to also kind of sugarcoat these kind of nuanced internal reflections with melody and pop structure, and kind of be, I guess, like the yin to the yang of Black Thoughts, like go really inside and buried and not only like sugarcoat in theory, but also in practice, where you can kind of passively listen and not really understand what's going on, because that's the same thing that's kind of happened to our history as Australian South Sea Islanders. It's just been buried. I mean, I do definitely feel a responsibility, but it's also a privilege, because I come from the oldest continuing culture in the world, and I've always understood my purpose, and that's to care for country. So, caring for country is trying to leave this place better than we've found it, and care all of the people on country and beings and all of that. So there's an innate responsibility, but I also know my purpose. So there's this liberation and freedom with it. And, making art for a living is pretty, I don't know if I can swear, but it's pretty fucking cool. So like, as much as there's pressure and all that, like, it's also just like I have the privilege to sit and reflect about these cycles of oppression rather than just existing in it. In a lot of ways, I do feel just so lucky. And with that, I want to try and use my art to kind of create more shift throughout my community. Yeah, so I guess it's like whole duality of like, yes, there's responsibility, but there's also just like having, you know, the best time making art. So it's pretty great. When I wrote Black Thoughts, like I was very much focused on being a lyricist. Again, how I was kind of touching on like not wanting to do the same thing. I wanted to, you know, evolve and create and explore. So Sugar Coated Lies as a project was so much about going from lyricist to songwriter and producer and figuring out what it is to conceive an idea both lyrically and sonically as well. So the way this album kind of started was I'd moved away from Perth, and my kind of like constant collaborator, J. Cal, who I wrote Black Thoughts with, it meant that we weren't in each other's pockets in the same way. I mean, we still are from distance because we're like best buds, but it just meant that like I kind of had to figure things out a little bit musically. So it started with being in this transient place and relocating to Sydney and not necessarily having a community of creators around me. So I started just writing demos on my shitty MacBook Air on Cracked Logic. And I mean, I'm still using that same shit, which is probably should update it, but I'm like attached to it now. But yeah, I just started writing demos, and like the first ones I started writing was like Done to You and Lovesick and Stressed Out and Breathe. There was like 5 of the songs I kind of just demoed pretty quickly, and then just, you know, kept on demoing them. And that was like really a process of learning, you know, how to produce and songwrite. And then from there, I started, you know, finding some connections in Sydney and then started doing a few sessions. And at that point, I kind of knew I was in the throes of an album. So when I was going into sessions, it was about, trying to flesh out this project. And so all of that writing kind of happened in 2018, 2019, and then set up shop. But the majority of the album was kind of done. So when we went back to it, and I should say in that process, I met Lewis Mitchell, who is like executive produced the album and is vocal engineer, mix engineer, also like best bud as well. So he was like such a big part of like understanding how to make a record feel cohesive. When Lewis and I opened back up Pro Tool sessions that were like 2 years old, like a lot of the songs were there. It was just about like, how do we kind of make those final kind of polished things so that it feels good. But it was also really great because we had a deadline. You know, it was like the show was airing in Gen 1 and we wanted it all to kind of come out around a similar time. So so much of it was just like, I think as artists, we can overcook things, and it's like sometimes it's already baked in and you just kind of got to make it the best that it can be and then move on and keep going. But it was like really intense work, then leaving it for years, and then really intense work and putting it out. I did this, like, there's this thing where you can like look at the back end of your streaming metrics, which is like a weird thing in itself. Like, it's such a rabbit hole. I saw that like the most like concurrent listeners that I had was on Jan 26th. And like, I thought that was a really interesting thing in that, like, one, obviously that's great that people are listening. Like, please keep listening. But also like, it was interesting to me because it was like, I would hope that my music is relevant every day of the year and not just, you know, when it maybe makes you feel good about yourself to be supporting a First Nations artist. Because as much as I'm a First Nations artist, I'm just an artist, right? I thought with the show coming out in Gen 1st, I definitely wanted it to be out around in the same sphere, but I just kind of thought it would be really interesting because I think Sugar Coated Lies is a step away from what I've been doing with Black Thoughts. And it's a step away from myself as well, because it's like, how much can you just like, you know, throw your trauma out there constantly and deal with all that comes to do with that. And Black Thoughts was, I think, you know, such an important piece of work, but it was also really taxing. And so for me, Sugar Coated Lies was about kind of cleansing that and moving forward within where I want to go as an artist. And I think for me, by like putting it out on Jan 26, it was like a statement of like, you know, my music's relevant every day of the year, and Invasion Day isn't just on Jan 26, right? It's like every day of the year. So it's like, no matter when I put this out, I'm feeling these things. And no matter if this album is as obviously, talking about these things, or if it's hidden, like, it's still Indigenous music, it's still my music, like, it's what I want to say. And it was kind of, in my way, like protest music for myself, in that, like, this is what I want to do. I want to do it now. And it's like liberation and freedom and self-determination and autonomy. And it felt like, what better day to like have that for myself than on a day where, like, I feel like there's so much expectation of how we're supposed to react or what we're supposed to do. Or it was just so much about like, this is my own space that is for me. And I'm trying to cherish that and hold that dear. I think it was just through playing around is kind of how I found how it all sounds. I don't know. I just like create pretty instinctively. Whatever feels good. And I think I liked the idea of like starting to pull from like different palettes. Like, obviously Black Thoughts was so much about, almost like this golden era of hip hop and jazz chords and drums and break beats. Like, that's kind of what that was, because it was about just kind of creating space for this really dense narrative. Whereas I think with Sugar Coated Lies, like, it was about kind of fusing a like feeling in a different way. So I mean, it was all kind of based around my pretty mediocre guitar playing, and that's just how I kind of figured out how to write songs and produce it. And like, as much as I grew up like in the listening to hip hop, like I was born in like the late mid 90s. So like I also grew up like listening to like Britney Spears. So I love pop music as well. So it was about like trying to pull from these different spaces to not like abandon anything, but just trying to take from things and make it make sense when applied to like my voice and vision. Like, it's still weird to me that anyone listens to it, like, because so much for me is just like, I've been writing songs since I was like 14, 15 years old. And like, for me, it's like become this thing that I just do. And like, the fact that, it's like, even like my mum hadn't heard the album and she like listened to it the day it came out and we were all together, and she was like super upset and emotional, and she was like, it was like really hard for her to hear. And like, I get that, but like, I guess like I'm a little bit oblivious to that. Like, I just don't try and think about if people are gonna listen to it or not, because for me it's about like, I obviously have all of this shit going on, and like being able to take this stuff inside and then like put it outside and create it into something means that I can like reflect and look at it and understand it in a different way, and also like let go of some of it, but because like by taking it from inside and putting it out, like it's kind of almost like the healing of a wound into a scar in a way. So I mean, maybe that's like, maybe I should think more about like about it, but I just don't. I just like, when I write music, it's like about expression, and I just want to like, I express what I know. So I don't really, I mean, I guess everyone has lines about like things they want to write about and don't want to write about, but if I'm gonna go there, like I'll just go all the way. Instant diehard fan? Oh, that's so different, because I mean, like I think I would go, oh, that's so hard. I think I'd say Done to You, Sugar Coated Lies better. And then it's a toss up between like Lovesick and Never. But I think because it's Die Hard, like I've always felt like Done to You is like, if I was finding this music, that's a kind of song that like, I think if you connect to it, like you connect to it in a way that it's like forever fan kind of thing. Like, I know there's been artists for me where it's like, it's not their biggest song, but it's like a specific song that catches me that I'm like, I will always look out for what they're doing. And like, I don't know why, but in my gut, Done to You's just always been that. And then I think Sugarcoated Lies is like just an absolute bop, and like Alice Guy is like phenomenal on it, and like it just works. Like, it just works in every way. And you know, the more you listen to it, the more you can kind of grasp that there's some, you know, deeper stuff going on than just like beats, hooks and bars, you know, like there's some actual things going on. And then I think Better is just like the culmination of like listening to the entire album and landing there. I think is a real kind of visceral moment. And I think that like, yeah, in a lot of ways, like it's fucking hell corny because it's like everything gets better. Like, but sometimes like the truth is corny, right? Like cliches are cliches because they happen. And like when I wrote Better, like I was writing it from a place of like more like a mantra. Like I hoped that things would get better, but I didn't know for sure. And it's like I have time now where it's like that song's 4 years old and like things did get better. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. Like I think everyone goes through stuff. So like that song is like really specific to me, but then I think within the specificity it becomes quite far reaching because you like can connect to like the humanity of it. So I think that again is like a pretty like getting people on board. That's my guess, but I also don't know. Yeah, I'm like currently in I think I'm like maybe pretty random in terms of like how things are supposedly done, because I've been like an independent artist like my entire career, and like I've always just wanted to operate from a place of like serving the art versus like, oh, like I put out 3 singles like 3 months apart and now here comes the tour. And you know, like, and I get that people do that because it works, right? But it's like for me it's always been about like what makes the most sense. And so I have put the album out and now I'm kind of like deep in my little cave of like how I want the show to be, because like I really love when shows can be like really theatrical as it starts raining. So but no, it's like I have this like really out there vision of like what I want the live show to be, and that's going to take like a little bit of time in development, but we're like having some pretty exciting conversations about actualizing it. But my kind of out there idea is that and this is like breaking news or whatever, but it's like the artwork is like this amazing skull that was formed in sugar, and I really want to create a thing that I can wear and then like black out things. So like at times it's like this literal floating skull, because I think the album was written to be able to be like listened passively. So when you come to the show, I really want it to like be active listening and like create this intentional distance, because like with Black Thought, so much of it was about me just giving everything, and like Sugarcoated Lies is about like asking people to like dig deeper. So yeah, I mean that's a very roundabout way in saying that things are in the works, and very excited to be able to share it very soon. Bob Marley, I would say Jay-Z, and I'll say my dad. I'd say Lauryn Hill. Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I would say 10 Canoes. This is so random, but a lot of the time it's trying to stop myself from burping, because sometimes I have this really bad habit of like sculling Red Bull right before I perform, because it like performing takes so much energy. So it's like fight Red Bull indigestion. Hannah Montana. Oh, I was just firing. All Falls Down by Kanye West. Ragamuffin in Byron Bay, which had Ziggy Marley and the Wailers, UB40, Arrested Development. They were the headliners. It was off the chain. I saw Mos Def and Common kind of play back-to-back in Perth, and it was phenomenal. Or actually, and I'll add a caveat, what's better than that? I saw for the Illmatic anniversary, Nas play Illmatic top to bottom. Spice Girl. Spicy Spice. Anywhere that will have me, really. I don't know, yeah. Oh, I'm so boring. I don't ever do karaoke. I would say All Falls Down. Recently, Hanging Rock. First and Forever. That was, yeah, phenomenal. I'd say sleep more and drink water. Yes. When I was 15 with my brother rapping All Falls Down back and forth to each other.